Hello, it's PSYCHOCORE, the absurd embracing the paradox of meaning and meaninglessness. Life often confronts us with a paradox, the desire to find meaning, purpose, and order, while the world around us appears indifferent, chaotic, and devoid of inherent meaning. This tension is at the heart of the philosophical concept known as the absurd, most famously explored by Albert Camus. The absurd arises from the clash between our deep longing for clarity and significance, and the silent, indifferent universe that offers none. Camus argued that recognizing the absurd is not a cause for despair, but an invitation to freedom. When we see that meaning does not come from outside, we can reject illusions and begin to create our own significance. But how do we live with this internal conflict, this confrontation between our hopes and the void? The absurd is not merely a fact, it is a challenge. It demands that we stop hiding from it and accept it fully. The path to embracing the absurd is a path of conscious rebellion. Camus introduced the myth of Sisyphus, condemned to roll a rock up a mountain, only for it to roll back down forever. Instead of seeing this as a futile punishment, Sisyphus learns to love his fate, finding freedom in acceptance. This myth mirrors our own journey. Recognizing the absurd opens the possibility to live fully in the present, without illusions but with full responsibility. The absurd can provoke many responses: fleeing into religious faith, seeking transcendental meaning, or sinking into cynicism and apathy. However, Camus rejected both religious escapism and despair, advocating for active, conscious resistance to the absurd. His philosophy is a philosophy of life that refuses to surrender passions, even while acknowledging their impermanence and limits. In today's fast-paced world, flooded with information and fleeting experiences, the struggle with the absurd is no less real. In fact, it is even more pressing. With the erosion of traditional sources of meaning, the chaos seems more apparent. Yet this chaos brings a unique opportunity to create meaning not from external conditions, but from our own inner freedom. The philosophy of the absurd reminds us that meaning is not a gift from the world, but a personal creative act. It invites us not to fear uncertainty, but to embrace it, becoming authors of our own lives. Acceptance of the absurd is not surrender but an act of courage that allows us to live deeply despite everything. Understanding the absurd is intimately connected to the idea of freedom. If the world lacks inherent meaning, we are freed from imposed norms and limits. Yet, this freedom carries responsibility. We must choose who we become, what we do, and how we respond. This choice is our answer to the absurd, our way of creating meaning in the void. In his essay The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus wrote, "There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide." The awareness of the absurd can bring a person to the brink, to thoughts of the futility of life. But Camus rejects suicide as an escape from the absurd and instead calls for embracing life in its fullness, with all its suffering and contradictions. The absurd is not an end but a beginning of a philosophical journey, where a person learns to live with awareness of mortality and the limits of existence. This awareness frees us from illusions and lets us see life clearly and honestly. Through the lens of the absurd, human life becomes both tragic and beautiful. Tragic because it lacks predetermined meaning, but beautiful because it opens endless possibilities for creativity and freedom. Modern art, literature, and film often reflect this dilemma, exploring themes of alienation, loneliness, and the quest for meaning in a meaningless world. The absurd becomes a source of inspiration and profound reflection. Living with the absurd is a constant dialogue between the desire for order and the encounter with chaos. It is an ongoing creation of meaning out of disorder, where every moment is an opportunity to discover something new, to build our own story, and to accept the impossibility of final answers. In the end, the philosophy of the absurd challenges us to live courageously, to find joy not in illusions of certainty but in the freedom of choice, creativity, and presence. It invites us to embrace life in all its complexity, fully aware of its contradictions,